Hi, this is Hector Del Castillo, Chief Product Officer at Byond, and I'd like to welcome all of you to today's episode and discussion. This is a CEO chat, and the topic for today is successful acquisitions for industrial automation and additive manufacturing, and also 3D printing businesses. And our speaker for today is Laurie Wiggins, who is CEO at Byond. Laurie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Hector. It's great to be here. Thank you.
All right, and looking forward to your talk. Before we get started, I want to go over some housekeeping items. So the first thing is we are recording today's discussion, and we will be sharing a link with everyone who signed up. All of you will actually have a chance to watch the video playback after the live session. Also, all of participants are in listen only mode. If you have any questions, we encourage you to use the chat or the Q&A section so that you can submit your questions and we can get to them either as we are proceeding on with the current program, or we also going to have a few minutes at the end of today's discussion for Q&A, where we will be posting any questions as time permits. So if you have any questions, be sure to submit them as early as possible so we can fit them into the program as we can. If you experience any audio issues, you can actually either refresh your browser, and if they persist, you might need to actually drop out and come back in. You can use the same link you used to join us to actually drop out and rejoin us, and hopefully that will take care of any audio issues if you're experiencing any audio issues. And with that, we can actually go ahead and get started. If you're on Twitter, here are the handles that you can use to share any information that we discussed today. At BeyondMA, at Laurie J. Wiggins, and at HM Del Castillo. Those are the three different handles for our Twitter profiles. You can also follow us and see our company page on LinkedIn. And you can use this short URL, which is bit.ly/BeyondMNA. And we'll be sharing this information via the chat so you don't have to necessarily write it down. You can use that and you can actually visit us after today's discussion. We want to give a special thanks and shout out to Scott Taylor for producing and editing the video content that we produce from every one of our episodes and our talks. And he'll be producing the video we'll be sharing with you after today's session. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you today's speaker, and that is Laurie Wiggins, CEO at Byond. Laurie, take it away.
Thank you, Hector. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here today, and I'm glad you're attending. So, who is this presentation for? First, CEOs that want to acquire successfully, that have a growth mindset, and that want to build an enduring business. In this presentation, you will learn how to acquire successfully and what to do today to make it happen. Does this sound like you? You've worked hard for years to grow your business, but you want to get faster growth. You want to outpace your competition and increase the resilience of your business. Or you want to position your company to acquire other companies. There is nothing for sale today. We are providing this presentation to provide value, and if you stick around until the end, we have a useful offer for you. Who are we? I have worked with technology companies either in them or with them for over 30 years, and I've helped businesses grow their revenues since 2010. I enjoy watching CEOs and founders succeed, and it is my joy to help them successfully scale, buy, and sell. I am a Virginia Tech grad, go Hokies, and I love singing and traveling with my husband and family. Hector Del Castillo, our Chief Product Officer, is also very accomplished and experienced with technology firms. And he also loves helping CEOs grow their technology and software businesses. He is a proud UC Santa Barbara and UT El Paso graduate. and he's a running man. He loves playing soccer, walking, and running. Let's look at the market for these areas. First, for additive manufacturing, valued in 2019 at almost $12 billion. It's going to see a CAGR, or compound annual growth rate, exceeding 14% in the next several years through 2027. So you'll see that this is the North American portion of that global market. And in 2019, the North American market was worth $3.7 billion. In 2025, it will be worth $8.5 billion. And you can see that additive manufacturing has been adopted across a number of industries, most major industries, and that it will be growing within each of these industries in the years to come. So good news for this industry. Also, we see by technology the breakdown for additive manufacturing. And you can see that there are a number of different technologies. Stereolithography is most prevalent, but certainly not dominant. This reflects the fact that not only is there a shakeout going on as far as technologies goes, but also the fact that different technologies are good for different uses. For example, with fused deposition modeling, it has a low price point. So it's good for things like proof of concept modeling or simple prototyping. Whereas stereolithography offers a wide variety of materials that you can model in, as well as high accuracy. So it's good for things like functional prototyping, patterns, tools, and molds. Let's look at industrial automation. You'll see that it's a much bigger market than 3D printing at 126.3 billion, but definitely a lower CAGR. It's more mature. So we're looking at this global industrial market by sections of the globe. So moving from left to right for each of these groupings, we've got North America, Europe, Asia Pacific is the middle one there in the gray, Middle East and Africa, and South America. And you can see that across the globe that the industrial automation market is growing for years to come, which is good news for this industry. Also, you see this global industrial automation breakout by end user. And while the biggest pieces of this pie, or the greatest users of industrial automation, are the automotive, the oil and gas, mining and metal, and general manufacturing areas, you can see that industrial automation has been adopted across many industries. Now let's look at what it takes to acquire successfully for these areas. First, there's two major kinds of deals. There's the scale deal, where companies that are seeking to scale or grow very quickly, they're looking to increase their market share. And they do this by acquiring their competitors, sometimes their suppliers, and sometimes their customers. So they are looking to grow their market share, and they want to be able to increase their R&D. And they're looking to really be able to scale up or grow their company, whereas in scope deals, which are done typically by larger, more better established companies, they are looking for penetrating new markets. They're looking to diversify their company. They're looking to provide new products and new services to their current customers. Let's look at how to acquire successfully in more detail. We're going to look at three major areas of the acquisition process. The first one is preparing to buy. Before you approach any targets, what do you need to do internally to be ready and to maximize your chance of success? How you work with sellers, and due diligence and integration. Scoring an A in all of these areas helps ensure that you are maximizing that acquisition as far as your company goes. So let's look at these in more detail. First, why acquire? Be very clear about why it is that you are going to buy another company. What value does it bring? Consult your executive team and others that are important and know your business well. Be very clear about this and achieve agreement within house that this is a good and right thing to do now. This will help inform your target characteristics. The more specifically you can characterize your targets, the more likely it is that you will be successful, that you will get what you want, and that your acquisition will provide the value, the additional value that you're looking for. Further, it's important to have an experienced team. A successful acquisition involves a diverse skill set. So you need a team that is experienced because mergers and acquisition is its own niche in the larger business field. Most M&A professionals, such as lawyers and accountants, focus on their specific areas, but you need someone who's looking at the big picture, who can not only utilize these professionals when they are needed, but only when they are needed. You can help keep the deal on track, and we do that sort of thing. If you're a CEO and you are acquiring a company, you have also acquired another full-time job. So bringing in some help is a good thing to do, whether it's us or somebody else, so that you can continue to run your company, because you have to do that too. Lastly, how are you going to finance the deal? Typically, companies use a combination of company cash, company debt or stock. Company equity or stock, or debt financing. If you are going to use debt to help finance the deal, it's a good idea to get a letter from your financier or bank stating that the funds are available for you. Also, savvy sellers are going to ask for something like this so that they know that you have the financial wherewithal to close the deal. Let's look at working with sellers. A moment ago, I talked about the specifics for your targets, and the better and more specifically you characterize them, the more likely it is you'll succeed. One of the reasons why is because comparing a hopefully large amount of targets to your criteria helps keep you objective about which targets you choose to pursue further. I have seen buyers fall in love with an acquisition only to regret it later. The criteria that you use will help you see those that you should pursue further discussions with very quickly, and it helps keep things objective. You should only approach targets that fulfill your criteria. Once you've chosen, say, those handful of targets that you want to talk to further, you're going to want to have them sign a confidentiality agreement. A CA is very like an NDA with some further strictures, including keeping your talks confidential, typically for competitive reasons. As you are working with these targets, one at least is going to become obvious as far as the acquisition that you want to make typically. And you're going to want to submit to them a letter of intent. And the letter of intent is important because it outlines all of the key aspects of a deal before a final agreement is drawn up. And those include things like price, earnouts, identification of key employees and ways to retain them. It includes due diligence and the ground rules for that, particularly important now because site visits may not be possible, closing costs and which company covers what. Also, expenses, warranties, and other items. Let's talk about due diligence and integration. There are a couple of types of due diligence, and one is we call the paper check, where you look at the legal and financial aspects of the deal. And while those are necessary, they are not sufficient. Due diligence is first and foremost a risk reduction measure for your acquisition. You do it to make sure that you are not incurring any hidden liabilities that you didn't know about. Liabilities that if you had known about them could scuttle the deal, and rightly so. It's far better to do a more thorough job of due diligence. Some companies, they don't want to incur that cost, but in fact, it helps you save money down the road because it's far better to find problems you didn't know you had and get out of the deal rather than discover them after closing. It's also key to start your integration planning well ahead of closing. PricewaterhouseCoopers did a study where they looked at companies involved in M&A, and they saw that companies that had started their integration planning well in advance of closing were 40% more likely to meet their objectives and have the acquisition be successful. So, people, systems, processes, and data are the things that you need to worry about integrating. Your due diligence can not only serve as a risk reduction measure, but helps you scope the effort that you're going to need to perform integration in these 4 areas. Company status, once you close, will also affect the amount and the extent of your integration. If you are fully subsuming the acquisition so that it's no longer a separate entity, then your integration will likely be more extensive than it will if it's continuing as a separate entity. Integration is a common failure point with acquirers, and so it's key that you have scoped it properly so that you understand the amount of money, time, and expertise you're going to need to do a thorough job of it. Integration typically is where companies can lose their business case for doing the acquisition, so it needs to be approached carefully and thoroughly. Once the deal closes, you're going to want to have good communication with everybody in the acquiring company You need to have your integration priorities 1, 2, 3 in place, as well as take into account cultural considerations. So here's how you can acquire successfully. You can do it the hard way. You can become an acquisition expert yourself. You can read books, attend expensive seminars and conferences, and hire expensive consultants. Or you can follow our methodology and framework to acquire successfully. Let's review what I promised you today. And that is, number 1, how to acquire successfully, and number 2, how to make it happen today. Here's how we can help. We suggest a 30-minute call with us to help you get clarity on 3 things: how much work it's going to take to prepare for a successful acquisition, assess your readiness to acquire, and to set up a process to acquire successfully. Here's how you do that. Please contact us to set up a free appointment at bit.ly/BeyondAPPT. And Hector is putting this URL in the chat so that you have it for reference. Further, we contemplate having a business acquisition workshop, about a half-day workshop, in the early winter. Please contact us if you are interested in getting information for this workshop at solutions@beyondma.com. This concludes my presentation, and now I'll turn the program over to Hector for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Laurie. And I'd like to remind the audience, submit your questions using the chat window or the Q&A, either one works. And we can get to them right now as we have a few minutes left before we wrap up. One of the questions normally that we get a lot when we talk to different prospects, Laurie, is trying to figure out how much work and the difference in the scope of work and the time and resources needed when you're doing a scale type of deal compared to a scope type of deal. Can you just discuss at a high level what to expect when you're looking at one or the other, and what happens to either resource allocation, the timing, how closely you work with a prospective seller?
Sure. The major difference between a scale and scope deal are the reasons why you are doing it. And as I alluded to before, companies in different parts of their life cycle do a scale deal versus a scope deal. But they involve the same sorts of preparation where before you approach any targets, you've got groundwork that you need to lay, and your interactions with your sellers, you're going to go through the same steps, as well as due diligence and integration. For the scope deals, they tend to be acquiring larger companies, so your due diligence is going to be more extensive. It's going to take longer and probably be more expensive, but you're still doing it for all the same reasons, and that is to reduce risk and to make sure you're not buying any hidden liabilities and to make sure that you're not overpaying. And integration will also probably take longer with a scope deal for the same reasons.
Great, thanks so much. Laurie, you also mentioned some of the growth rate, especially in industrial automation, which is pretty high projected for the next 5 years.
Yes.
Can you mention which specific manufacturing sectors are likely to see a higher demand than others when it comes to adoption of industrial automation?
Well, right now, the leaders are automotive, various types of manufacturing, oil and gas, and then mining and metals. And those are going to continue to be big consumers in the future. I do think that other industrial areas are going to catch up to them. Because these industries do more repeatable actions for their products, they adopted it first. But as we get better and smarter, these companies that are providing industrial automation, they're going to figure out how to better serve other companies and other industries as well. So I would say, you keep watching to see if those adoption leaders retain that role.
Got it. Thank you so much. And also, as we're waiting for more questions from the audience, I'd like to mention a little bit more about Byond. We believe in making a massive positive impact within any organization. And we focus on organizations that want to scale their growth, and mostly technology and software companies as our specialty. But we're also help you in buying and or selling businesses as well. And in this case, it would be other technology and or software businesses that you may be interested in either buying or in exiting at different points. And if you want more information about us, you can actually go to our website. You can also visit our LinkedIn company page. And here is our contact information. Laurie's email address, as well as the link to her LinkedIn profile. And also for myself, my email, as well as the URL for my LinkedIn profile and our website as well. So you can get a hold of us, reach out to us. And as Laurie mentioned, you can schedule a free time to talk to us for at least half hour if you have clarity on any of those three things that have to do with how to plan and implement successful acquisitions. And with that, Laurie, I don't see any more questions. Anything you want to say in closing?
Yes, thank you everyone for joining us today. Please stay well, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, and thanks, audience, and we'll be hoping to talk to you in the near future. Thank you so much.